As copper still gleams on the edges of a familiar penny, you might be holding a tiny time capsule whose value stretches far beyond its face. The 1997 Lincoln cent quietly slipped into circulation alongside grocery receipts and credit card swipes, but a handful of these humble discs emerged with hidden quirks that today can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. Patina and precision intersect in surprising ways on this otherwise ordinary coin, and exploring its story feels like uncovering a secret handshake passed down among collectors. Let's turn this small piece of metal over and see why it matters more than its mere cent. The tale begins with the Lincoln cent's evolution. First released in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's centennial, the obverse design by Victor David Brenner instantly captured the public's imagination. Nearly 9 decades later, in 1997, the cent's composition had changed to a 97.5% zinc core with a thin copper plating, introduced in 1982 to curb rising copper costs. Despite the change in metal, the design endured, Lincoln's profile standing resolute on the front, the Union shield cradling 12 vertical stripes on the reverse. Yet even in this mechanized era of mass production, the mint's presses occasionally produced coins with anomalies, subtle shifts or double dies, that spark intense interest today. Among 1997 pennies, the most coveted variants center on the double die error. On authentic examples, Lincoln's beard, the date, or the lettering appears to have a faint ghost image, as if each feature were stamped twice with a slight offset. Detecting this requires a loupe or sharp eye. The tiny doubling on the rim of the date's digits or along the rim of Liberty can be a dead giveaway. Only a scant few dozen of these double die obverse have been confirmed by professional graders, making them exceedingly rare compared to the millions of standard strikes. As a result, they stand as the hallmark of the 1997 cents-era repertoire. Collectors prize these double die specimens because they encapsulate the unexpected in a production line. One of the most famous auction results occurred in late 2023, when a PCGS MS65 certified 1997 double die obverse sold for just over $1,200, far eclipsing the common penny's face value by a factor of 120,000. Even finer specimens graded MS66 or MS67, where doubling is crisp and fields are blemish-free, have occasionally pushed past $2,500 at specialty sales. These figures underscore how condition and certification amplify value. A clear, strong doubling on a flawless field commands the highest bids. Yet the double die isn't the only twist to watch. Some 1997 cents exhibit a repunched mint mark at the Denver D location. Rather than a single, clean D, you may glimpse a faint secondary stamp, slightly askew or partially overlapping the primary mark. This repunching occurred when mint workers re-entered the mint mark hub into the die to reinforce a weak impression. The result? A subtle ghost D that's tougher than the double die to find. Perhaps only a dozen or so verified examples survive. Auction houses report that these repunched mint marks, graded MS63 or above, command prices in the $200 to $400 range, reflecting both their scarcity and the growing awareness among collectors. Beyond double dies and mint marks, off-center strikes present another layer of intrigue. Imagine a 1997 penny where the obverse lands 10% to 20% off its normal alignment. Portions of Lincoln's profile might drift into the copper plating's edge, leaving an unstruck crescent of bare metal. While some hobbyists dismiss off-centers as easy errors, high-grade examples, say, 15% off-center but still possessing strong detail, draw serious bids. Depending on the degree of misalignment and the coin's overall preservation, off-centers can range from $50 for minor shifts in circulated grades to several $100s for larger offsets in near-mint condition. Scattered through these errors are stories that bind collectors together. A retired schoolteacher in Ohio once paid 10 cents each for a handful of 1997 pennies at a local estate sale, only to discover two had prominent double dies. Curious to learn their worth, she posted photographs on a Numismatic forum. Within days, specialists were advising her to send them for professional grading. Her patience paid off. Those two coins each netted over $1,000 at auction, funding her dream trip to Washington, D.C., to to tour the Smithsonian's National Numismatic Collection. Condition plays a monumental role in every valuation. A circulated 1997 double die, worn smooth on Lincoln's cheek and with many surface marks, might fetch just $150 to $200, barely covering grading fees. In contrast, mint state survivors, specimens with luster intact and only microscopic contact marks, can escalate into the low four figures. Collectors often gravitate toward grades MS65 and above, where the doubling remains vivid and fields sparkle without distracting scuffs. High grades naturally come at a premium. MS67 examples exist only because a lucky few coins dodged heavy handling and environmental damage over nearly 3 decades. Numbers reinforce the importance of condition. According to population reports, only a single PCGS-certified 1997 double die obverse has achieved MS67 status, and fewer than 10 are graded MS66. Meanwhile, several hundred specimens populate the MS65 designation, and the tally climbs sharply into the thousands at MS63 and below. Auction records mirror those stats. The lone MS67 sale in late 2022 chalked up $2,700, whereas multiple MS66 lots in 2023 hovered around $1,300 each. These data points highlight how every scratch, every hairline abrasion, chips away at potential value. Collecting these pennies also offers an entry point for broader conversations. For experienced numismatists, they serve as reminders that errors continue to emerge even in modern mintages. For those who discover an odd penny in a jar and marvel at a double date, the 1997 cent opens doors to grading services, collector communities, and the thrill of unveiling hidden worth. And for investors, it underscores how scarcity, condition, and collector demand intersect to transform mere copper and zinc discs into sought-after treasures. Even beyond the anomalies, the 1997 penny carries cultural resonance. It straddles an era of change at the U.S. Mint, automated bagging, digital die preparation, and a ramp-up in annual production volumes unseen in earlier decades. As coins grew more plentiful, genuine mistakes grew rarer, a paradox that elevates each error to near-mythic status. Holding a well-preserved 1997 double die or repunched mint mark feels akin to clasping a fragment of the mint's evolving history, a tangible link to the precision and fallibility of modern machinery. Of course, not every collector seeks out high-end error coins. Some focus instead on assembling complete date and mint sets or tracking variations like the wide AM die found on reverse inscriptions, where the letters A and M in America appear slightly farther apart. These subtle die differences captivate those who appreciate the myriad ways a single design can shift under different die engravings and press pressures. Even in circulated grades, these minor varieties can add a dash of interest and modest premiums over face value. As auction catalogs for 1997 Lincoln cents grow thicker, seasoned collectors advise newcomers to invest in a quality loupe and to learn the subtle hallmarks of each error type. Lighting angle, magnification, and careful comparison with reference images all factor into confident identification. Coin shows and online forums brim with peer reviews, where photographs of suspected errors invite street-level authentication before committing to grading fees. It's a community-driven process that deepens one's appreciation for the craft. Next, we'll journey back a few years to 1994 and uncover the quirks that make that cent, released when the nation welcomed the mid-90s, an equally fascinating chapter in modern numismatics. But for now, peer closely at that copper disc in your palm. You might just be clutching a sliver of minting lore waiting to be discovered. Sliding from the precision-pressed errors of 1997 into the world of mid-90s minting, the 1994 Lincoln cent carries its own cachet of unexpected quirks and modern rarity. At first glance, a 1994 penny feels utterly familiar, copper enrobed zinc bearing Lincoln's dignified profile on the obverse and the familiar shield on the reverse. Yet within that sea of change lies a handful of survivors whose idiosyncrasies have launched them into the spotlight of high-end numismatics. Date placement, die varieties, and drifted strikes all converge to create a playground for collectors comfortable with subtlety, eager to spot the telltale signs that turn a pocketful of cents into a small fortune. The everyday 1994 Lincoln cent followed the same recipe introduced 12 years earlier, a 97.5% zinc core clad with a thin copper layer, trimming copper costs while preserving the classic appearance. Victor David Brenner's obverse portrait and the shield reverse endured unchanged, yet slight die modifications introduced two primary reverse varieties, the wide AM and the narrow AM. The distinction hinges on the spacing between the letters A and M in America. On the wide AM die, those letters sit farther apart, leaving a discernible gap. On the narrow AM, they're tightly pressed together. Collectors quickly recognized that the wide AM variety, though not technically an error, commanded a modest premium simply because it appeared on fewer dies and slipped less readily into circulation. Within weeks of 1994 pennies entering pocket change, however, the real prizes began to surface: double die obverse, DDO, that stamped Lincoln's beard, date, or lettering with a ghosted secondary impression. The most dramatic examples show doubling on the rim of the date numerals and along the exclamation points of Liberty, as if the die shifted slightly between impressions. Spotting these requires a loupe or at least strong magnification, though once you've seen that subtle shadow echoing Lincoln's jawline, it's impossible to unsee. Experts estimate that fewer than 50 confirmed 1994 DDOs exist, making them arguably the most sought-after modern penny error. Auction records speak volumes. In early 2024, a PCGS MS64 graded 1994 double die obverse sold for $3,200, setting a new benchmark for that grade. Later in the same year, a pristine MS65 specimen achieved $18,500, eclipsing its predecessor's result by nearly six-fold. Even finer coins graded MS66, where doubling is razor-sharp and fields gleam virtually unblemished, have broken the $50,000 barrier at specialist sales. These numbers underscore how condition multiplies rarity. A well-struck DDO in mint state transforms from curious anomaly into a trophy piece commanding five-figure bids. Beyond DDOs, other varieties slip under the radar. The wide AM versus narrow AM distinction affects value so consistently that PCGS and NGC populate separate census counts for each. A typical circulated narrow AM may trade at face value or just a few cents above, but a gem-quality wide AM in MS64 can approach $15 in today's market. Though modest compared to error coins, these die varieties illustrate how minor design differences capture collector attention, even in high-volume modern issues. Repunched mint marks offer another angle for the dedicated. At the Denver Mint, a handful of dies showing a secondary, misaligned D struck into the planchet reveal mint workers' attempts to reinforce a weak initial impression. These RPMs, repunched mint marks, usually appear as faint echoes adjacent to the primary D. While far less dramatic than a doubling, they're far rarer in surviving specimens. Only a couple dozen examples have surfaced in private hands. Auction houses report values of $150 to $350 for circulated grades bearing a visible RPM, with mint state survivors graded MS63 or higher fetching between $500 and $800, depending on clarity. Off-center strikes also pepper the hobbyist's wish list. A 1994 penny misaligned by 15 to 20% still shows most of Lincoln's image but drifts toward the rim, leaving an unstruck crescent of bare metal. In worn grades, such minor off-centers trade for as little as $20, but uncirculated examples with strong detail and clean fields can climb above $300. Extreme offsets, 30% and above, draw steeper premiums, especially in higher grades, though they're rarer because such errors often get sorted out during mint quality checks. Digging into the historical context, 1994 marked a period of transition at the U.S. Mint. Automation further reduced hand finishing of dies, and digital engraving began to supplement traditional hub-and-die techniques. At the same time, mintages reached unprecedented heights, over 12 billion Lincoln cents struck across Philadelphia and Denver. Yet against that backdrop of mass production, genuine errors, and minor dye varieties became ever more elusive, elevating each surviving anomaly to remarkable status. A well-preserved DDO or RPM from 1994 stands not just as a collectible oddity but as a relic of a mint undergoing rapid technological change. Stories behind these pennies often revolve around everyday discoveries. One collector recounts sorting through $20 in freshly rolled cents from a bank, spotting what looked like a slight doubling on Lincoln's jawline. Holding the penny closer to the light, the ghostly imprint on the date, faint but unmistakable, sent her heart racing. She submitted the coin for grading, and the resulting MS-63 DDO later fetched $2,800 at auction. That excitement, that moment of revelation when a coin transcends its humble status, is the very lifeblood of modern era collecting. Condition remains king in determining final value. A heavily circulated 1994 DDO with smoothing on Lincoln's hair and surface nicks might bring only $250 to $350 in a private sale, barely covering the cost of authentication. In contrast, mint state survivors graded MS-66 or MS-67 can skyrocket into the tens of thousands. Population reports show only one PCGS-certified MS-67 1994 DDO in existence, making it a grail piece that commands instantaneous attention whenever it appears on the market. Even dropping a single grade, to MS-66, halves or quarters the population count, illustrating how each incremental step matters dramatically. Collecting strategies vary. Some experienced numismatists focus solely on errors like DDOs and off-centers, aiming to secure the finest certified examples for their cabinets. Others pursue complete die variety sets, compiling wide AM and narrow AM reverses from both mints, sprinkled with RPMs and low-grade off-centers for color and story. Still others build pedigreed collections, tracing provenance through auction catalogs to coins once owned by legendary dealers or featured in seminal numismatic publications. Having explored the many facets that elevate 1994 Lincoln cents from common currency to prized collectibles, your next step might involve assembling a short list of target varieties, securing a quality loop, and diving into reference materials. From the whispered doubling on Lincoln's brow to the whispered gap between A and M, each subtle detail holds the promise of a remarkable find. In our conclusion, we'll weave together the lessons from both 1997 and 1994, revealing how these modern-era cents speak volumes about minting technology, collector passion, and the enduring thrill of uncovering hidden value in the everyday.